This is going to be one of the most important chess videos that you are ever going to watch, because I am going to teach you exactly how you should play the middle game in chess. And it is really in the middle game that most chess players stay stuck. This is the part of the game where they throw away their game, and this is what is keeping a lot of people back. So make sure to watch this entire video, because the strategy that I will teach you is very powerful, and you can use this strategy no matter what opening you play. I am going to keep it extremely simple for this opening, and I am going to play this. Literally put a pawn in the center, develop my two pieces and castle. Personally, I never play this. This is the Italian game, but doesn't matter. I just want to demonstrate how to use these principles no matter what opening you play. Okay. So the first thing that we should go for is always to castle as quickly as we can. So what I did was I developed my kingside pieces first, my kingside knight, my kingside bishop, so that I can castle. Very important. If we start developing a lot of these queenside pieces, it's going to take us longer to castle. Yes, of course, there are openings where you can do that, but in general, the best thing to do is to castle as quickly as we can. And the moment we have castled is the moment that the middle game starts. And this is where we will be using our strategy. So our strategy is a two-part strategy. The first part of the strategy is that we always need to look at the last move our opponent played first. And we need to do this to do blunder prevention, basically to avoid ourselves from making mistakes, and also to avoid tunnel vision. And tunnel vision is one of the biggest reasons that so many chess players are stuck at their level, because you are so obsessed with your own plan, your own attack, that you don't pay attention to what the opponent did on their last move, and that leads to you blundering pieces or missing a lot of tactics. So I look at my opponent's last move, and I always try to figure out, does my opponent have a check, a capture, or a threat? CCT. Do they have a check, a capture, or a threat? Well, they have a capture. They can capture this pawn. So if they have a check, a capture, or a threat, we need to fix that. We need to fix that. We cannot continue with our own plan, or we would just be losing material. So I'm going to fix it in the most simple way. I'm going to play pawn d3, so I can protect that pawn. Okay. They castle, which means this is not a move we have to be afraid of. There is no check, capture, or threat for the opponent that really does anything to our position. Like, yes, they have checks, yes, they have captures, but all of them are moves that just give away a piece. If you need some more time to double check that, just take the time. But I see that there is nothing that they can do. Which means now it's our turn to find good moves, because we don't have to solve any of the threats from the opponent. What we always need to do first, before we try to go for our middle plan, I'm about to teach you a very good middle game plan, but before we go for the middle game plan, we should also do a quick CCT for ourselves, meaning we should also look at our checks, or captures, and or threats. What is a threat? A threat is, for example, attacking a queen with a knight, attacking a bishop with a pawn, setting up a checkmate, something like that would be a threat. Why do we need to look at this? Maybe our opponent just blundered. If they did, it's going to be a check, a capture, or a threat that helps us to win the game. Do we have something here? We have nothing that works. All checks, captures, or threats here are just bad, or they don't exist. Okay. Which means if we have no CCT, if we have no check, capture, threat, we should optimize. And you can remember this strategy by remembering CCTO, check, capture, threat, optimize. This video, I will mostly talk about how to optimize. The check, capture, threat is just a habit that you will have to build into your game. How do we optimize? How do we actually play a middle game? Well, the first middle game strategy that we can go for, no matter what opening we play, is to try to get two pawns in the center. So I started the game with putting this pawn in the center. Okay, which means my middle game strategy is to get the second pawn there to that blue square. Imagine if we started with playing the queen's pawn, then our middle game strategy would be to get the second pawn there. That's always the first step that we can use in our strategy. So we want to get this pawn there. And what we simply need to do is we need to check, can we do that move? No, we would lose it, and it's protected twice. We cannot capture back. We would always be losing. And if we cannot play it, we should just prepare it. That is the middle game strategy. Okay? One of the biggest mistakes I see here is that players then think, oh yes, I can put my pawn on d4. This is the moment. But we have to be careful, because this pawn was also protecting the other pawn. And if we just push it, then we are going to lose that pawn on e4 potentially. So it's very important to also protect your central pawn enough times so that we can push without losing. Now they play d6, so now is the moment for us to think, can we play this move? Can we play pawn to d4? Well, let's look at this. They would take, we would take, okay. This looks like it works, but there are actually a couple of problems that could arise in this position. First of all, we have to watch out for the move knight takes e4, which looks strange because they are giving away the knight, but they can eventually play a fork. And this mostly happens if we have that bishop here on this c4 square. So that is something we need to watch out for, that sometimes they can sacrifice and then they can give us a fork with that d5 pawn push. So to fix this, I'm just going to drop back my bishop. That's in general a safe move to make, because then this is going to help us to play that move d4. Okay. As usual, we first need to look at what they are doing. And they just played a good move. They played bishop to g4, which pins our knight, which now means that if we go for this plan, it doesn't work again. It doesn't work because they are just grabbing this and our knight is pinned. If we move it, we lose the queen. And you can see how easy it is to find good moves if you just follow this strategy, because we basically have one focus and every move we are just trying to make that one plan happen. So I don't like it that this knight is pinned, so we have to do something about it. I could play pawn to h3 and attack that bishop, or I could protect my knight first. Which one is best? I think they both work. I am going to play pawn to h3 because I go through the CCT steps and this was a threat. It was a threat on a bishop, so I chose to play this move. If they had traded, that would be simple. Let me show you. If they had traded, we would be able to just take back with the queen and then continue with our plan. But they don't want to relieve the pressure. They are keeping that bishop here. Okay. So oftentimes when you try to follow this strategy, if you are playing a strong opponent like I am doing here, they will try to make it difficult for you to get that second pawn in the center. They should. That should be their plan. A lot of weaker players will just allow you to do this, but this is going to be a good example because this opponent is not just allowing me to do it, which basically means that we will have to be patient and we will have to keep going through our CCTO, see if we have a check, a capture, or a threat, and if we don't, we need to optimize. And optimize here can mean a lot of things, but I'm just going to get more pieces into the game, which is what I am doing here. And I will show you a very, very interesting strategy that you can use in this particular position, but also in general, which is to reroute your knight. So this knight on b1 is not doing anything, but it's also not so useful on d2, because if it is on d2, it's basically blocking my queen from helping my center. So I'm going to do what I call a grandmaster maneuver. I'm going to go b1 to d2 to f1, so that I can in the future go to g3. It's a whole maneuver, but this will solve all of our problems, because we are going to attack that bishop. The bishop will have to move, and then we might finally be able to push that pawn. Okay, what did our opponent just do? Remember, avoid tunnel vision. What are they doing? They are threatening to take our bishop. As a general rule, you don't want to give up a bishop for a knight. There are exceptions to the rule when the position is very closed, but here the position is undecided yet. This will probably open up. Closed in chess always means there are a lot of pawns and these central squares. So to see if a position is open or closed, you just have to look how many pawns are there here. But we also have to take into account, can we open it up? Meaning, can we exchange pawns? And yes, it is very easy here to start some pawn exchanges, maybe even e5 in the future. So it's very likely that these pawns are going to disappear, which means it will become an open position, which means that we want to keep our bishops on the board. All right. They just moved back, doesn't really do anything, and we are going to complete our grandmaster maneuver, and now we have these two knights here. You can see that we are slowly but steadily making progress towards our plan, which our plan is always going to be trying to push that d4 pawn. Okay, can we do it here? That's the next question. Yes, we could push it. They could take it, and we could capture back, and this would probably be fine. This means that we can play it, Should we do it immediately? Well, we could. We could also look if we maybe have some other moves. We are not really in a big rush. We basically wanted to prepare this. If there is a way for black to make this impossible soon, then we would have to do it immediately. If we don't see any way for them to make it impossible, then we basically have time to choose what we are going to do. This game, just to keep it simple, I'm going to play it and I'm going to demonstrate that we needed to get these 2 pawns in the center. Okay, so that is perfectly fine. All right. They play the rook here. They attack this 3 times and it is protected 3 times, so we are doing fine. All right. And once we get to this position and we have both of our pawns in the center, this is where we need to start part 2 of the middle game strategy. The second part of this middle game strategy is that we would like to push either pawn to e5 or pawn to d5. It depends a little bit on the position, but it's by pushing one of these pawns and gaining space that we will eventually be able to try to create a winning advantage. Right here in this position, if we push it to e5, it's a complicated position, but basically a lot of trades can happen, and I think eventually we might, yes, we are dropping this pawn. We are dropping that pawn on d4. They can take it with a knight, and they can also fork our pieces. We might even be losing that pawn. It's a bit of a complicated mess, but basically sometimes e5 works. If it does, it's amazing. It's not going to work in this position. It's going to be d5 that we want to play, and we want to kick away that knight. Okay. Knight goes here. Knight attacks the bishop. Remember what we talked about? We want to save that bishop if we can, so I'm just going to move it back, make sure that we don't lose it. All right. Our opponent is threatening to take on g3, which would double our pawns. We want to keep our pawn structure intact as much as we possibly can, so I'm not going to allow this. I'm just going to take their knight. That just fixes that problem. We won't be getting doubled pawns. All right. Now we have to move on to part 2 of the middle game strategy. So we achieved one of our pawns here on the 5th rank, this d pawn. The single best thing that could happen for us is if we can push even more and if we could get that pawn to e5. That is something that will only be possible if we really prepare it well, and it also depends a little bit on what the opponent plays. Okay, so there are a couple of interesting things going on in this position. First of all, what is this knight doing here? It's on our side of the board. I don't really like that. I don't want their pieces on my side of the board. So let's just kick it away. Make a threat, basically, a threat threatening the knight so that we can try to force it to move. They make a strategic mistake here. Black is giving us a bishop for a knight, and in this strategy, as we are going to try to open up the position, bishops will become very important. So now we already have this advantage that we have 2 bishops against a bishop and a knight, which means that we already have our first advantage in this position. Okay. So what are we going to go for now? Well, as I told you, one of our plans is to try to prepare opening up the position, playing something like e5. Can we play e5 here? No, not really, because they have 2 pieces attacking that. So we are going to prepare it. I'm going to use my bishop here and activate it along this diagonal, which helps to push e5, and it might also help in attacking the king. Okay. Queen g5. Whenever they move the queen, that is the moment where we need to double check exactly what is going on, because queen moves are usually the start of an attack. What are they attacking? They are attacking this pawn. They are also attacking some squares in our position. Is any of this a problem that we need to deal with? Not really. Okay. Do they have a check capture or a threat? Not really. So we are going to continue. I think it's time that we finally chase this knight away from our position. We don't want the knight to be there because the closer their pieces are inside of your position, the bigger the opportunities are for them to do tactics. So in general, I always say everything up to and including this red border is our territory. So we never want them to have any pieces on our territory. And what we want to do during the middle game is we want to start expanding. We want to start pushing forward, which is what we are doing. We already have this 1 pawn here. Would be great if we could get even more pieces there. Okay. What's the follow-up plan here? It's actually pretty simple. We just need to keep optimizing our pieces, and we want to get our rooks more into the game. I am really looking into something like rook e2 and then rook e1, so we can double the rooks on this file. I think that is a good strategy. Why did I come up with this exact strategy and not something else? Because as I said, it's this pawn push that we are looking for. That's the pawn push that we want to make. But this game, I have a very strong opponent, which is basically, I think, yes, we are at move 25. Up to this point, they have been putting up a real fight. But now I feel like they finally cracked. They finally made a mistake, which, whew, I'm happy because I mean, this was getting a long strategic battle against this 2200. I thought they were going to play knight e5, which I would have probably taken that. Yes, I'm giving up a bishop, but that knight was very strong. And then we can continue from here. But that would have been the perfect way to try to prevent or plan of pushing e5. But they didn't. And I think, if I am correct, that we have a potential to play that e5 move. So first we can take here, do this exchange. And then the question, we have been wanting to do this during this entire game, can we play e5? So let's look at it together. Can we play e5? If they take, we take on c6. That's very nice. So that doesn't work. If they take with a knight, then probably we can give up a bishop for that knight and then still get the queen to c6. Maybe there's even something more spectacular that we can do there. I think there might even be some back rank problems going on that rook takes. So to me, it looks like this just works. We just have to be able to play e5. Okay, they take with the knight. So now this is a good time for us to start calculating. So we need to look at or checks, or captures, and or threats. So the first most obvious thing is take, and then looking into queen takes c6. I think this would be one way to play it. However, this position looks pretty equal, and they are actually the one with a pawn in the center. Okay. Do we have any other captures? Yes. Queen f7 would be a big blunder. And we also have rook takes knight, which probably wouldn't be good because they just take back and it's the same position but with worse material. But we have a genius move, I think, here. I think this might even be a brilliant move. Queen takes c6. Queen takes c6. It's a capture that a lot of people wouldn't even consider, but we have to look at every check, capture, and threat. And if they take this queen, that is check and checkmate, back rank mate. The bishop is covering this escaping square. So basically, we can just pick up this pawn here on c6. However, we never want to keep our queen hanging for a very long time. That would be incredibly dangerous. So I think it's also smart if we eliminate that knight to prevent any problems. Okay, and this position, wow, this is really one of the best examples I could possibly get to showcase this strategy, because we achieved our goal. We were able to open up the position, we were able to put our pieces into good attacking positions, and by following this strategy, the end result should always be that we have a winning tactic. That is the goal, and we have a beautiful winning tactic here. So this king is stuck on the back rank, and we are cutting off the escaping square, which means that there are a lot of potential back rank checkmates that we could play, but we need to get something active so that we can attack that rook. So the move I am looking into is rook takes e5, and rook takes e5 looks crazy because they can just take this, and it looks like they are winning material, but we have queen takes a8 with a check, and then this is a back rank checkmate. And if they take our rook with the queen, we can take that with the rook, and they still cannot capture back because they would be running into checkmate. And this is just one example of the many tactics that you can get by playing this middle game strategy. We basically wanted to push the pawns forward. We wanted to win material or get a crushing attack, which we did here. Yes, they get a little bit of counterplay here. They can give us some checks. It's not really going to matter. They sacrifice the bishop, but in the end here we are at material, and we have another beautiful move here. Wow, I hope you can see it. CCT, check, capture, threat. Queen takes a8. Queen takes a8, and that's just a free rook. Let me show you why. If they take that rook, it's again check and mate. It's still back rank mate. This is what happens when we play this strategy well. Okay, so they sacrifice the queen so that we take back. so that they take back. And now this should be an incredibly simple endgame. Why do I say that this should be a simple endgame? We are up a full bishop, and this should be an easy conversion. The best thing that could happen for us would be trading rooks. So that is the first thing that I'm going to look into. Can I trade rooks? And they just allow it. Perfect. Now we are just up a clean bishop, and if you are up a clean bishop, you will win this anytime. What we need to do is we need to try to see if we can create what is known as a passed pawn, a pawn that can promote. That is the plan. And this is what we just did. We created a pawn that can promote. It's only 3 squares away from promotion. Sometimes you will be able to promote this. Sometimes, like here, they will have the king close, but that's not a problem because basically their king is stuck defending for the rest of this game. They have to defend this square. Otherwise, we will be just running up the board potentially. So because their king is going to be distracted, it always has to stay very close to that pawn. We can just activate our king, and we can start picking up all of the pawns. And if they were to come all the way over here, then I would just push that pawn. But here I can take these pawns, and this should be incredibly easy because here we can literally make a second queen. If these pawns were not on the board, we would still be winning this because we can force their king away and then we can promote. I won't show you how to win this. I think that's something that you should know, but basically make a queen and then just end up giving them a checkmate.